working together, it was really when our business took off.
That's what makes the difference, and that's what builds people, builds relationships, and builds longevity. And
it's very common, I will see a business owner who appears to be winning in their professional life, but it's sometimes to the detriment.
I forgot that I was not making enough money to make the payments on all of my other stuff that I had borrowed money for.
Well, thank you so much for coming in to do this podcast with me. I really am so excited for everyone to hear your story. So I want to jump in from the very beginning because I have the benefit, unlike normally with a podcast, of actually knowing the story. But take me back to the very first time the conversation of starting what is now known as Works24 began. What were you doing before that?
So there's a bit of a difference of opinion how this, but
Controversy this early on. I love it.
As I best remember it.
Yeah.
So we'll start that way. As I best remember it.
Perfect.
On our honeymoon, Marla is an attorney, and she had just started an estate tax planning financial business with a great couple out of Oklahoma City that was going to turn that over to her. And I was in the insurance business, and the focus was on farm and ranch insurance, and I was doing really well in this insurance. I was in my fourth year, and as top 2% in the country in sales. I was single, I was young, thought I had the world by the tail. Every year, our company, though, required that we do an estate tax planning seminar in our county. And I had never had any success at getting very many people to this event. And so it was a bit frustrating. I'd never had more than 7 people come to one of my events. 2 of those were my dad and grandpa. It was just like, do I really have to do this again? And so I was on the phone, though, and got put on hold to another business. And while I was on hold, I heard messages about their company. And it just struck me as something that I thought, well, that's really interesting. I like that. I wanted to be the first guy in the insurance business at that time that had a laptop. This was back
cutting edge, Brian.
Yeah, 90, 93, 94. And so came back and I asked a friend of mine that from church, if I put together the script, could he record it and put me together a tape that would just run endlessly that I could put on the phone system to promote this estate tax planning seminar. And he told me he could put the tape together, but he didn't know how to make it work on the phone system. I'm like, well, you work on getting the tape put together, and I'll figure out how to get it on the phone system. And the message was, mirror, mirror on the wall, what's the cruelest tax of all? Unfortunately, your heirs will be the ones that have to answer that question. Be sure and ask us about our most recent literature on estate tax planning, and be sure and register for our upcoming seminar on September 12th. We'll be right back on the line. Have a great day. Over and over and over. I thought, okay, perfect. I figured out how to I had a $29 cassette tape player and a tape that would run endlessly. Thought, here's my out. So I'm going to put this on the phone system for 90 days. If it works, great. Somebody will show up. If it doesn't work, great. I can tell my superiors that I tried. And I fully expected nothing would happen, but I could say I tried, and I could move on with my life. We were taking care of other claims, or when we were answering questions to new policies or any life insurance, whatever we were doing, people, when they were waiting for me or anybody else, got put on hold. Well, at the end of 90 days, instead of no one showing up, I had 121 people register to attend my estate tax planning seminar. And that created a great big problem because I'm not good enough to present something good enough to everybody in our community, our small farming town, 3,500 people. Now they're all coming to hear something important, and I'm not the guy capable.
Hmm.
So at that time, I had our estate tax planning attorney for my dad and my grandpa was a gentleman, Kerry Maya. So I brought him in, and he happened to be the president of the Oklahoma Bar Association that year. So now I had the president of the Bar Association coming in as my guest speaker for this event. Perfect. Created a big problem because every accountant and attorney in town now wanted to be at my event to see what I was telling their clients. And it just kept compounding that it got. But at the end, I had a great seminar, had great results, helped a lot of people with their life insurance needs to fund their tax planning for their estate. Great event. Afterwards, then the word got out that I'd had this great event, that nobody had a great event doing this. And then I had all the other agents start calling me, wanting to know how to get one of those on hold things.
Wow.
And after about 4 of those phone conversations, I'm like, I am not going to do this for free for everybody. So we put together a cassette tape, the snap-in plastic 6 tapes in a cassette book type deal. And I put in a color printed sheet for the agents on the front cover of it. And I started selling those for $599 a kit. And so I was selling these kits, and they're flying off the shelf, and the agents are calling, and I say, well, here's what I've got, and this is what I used, and it's $599. I'm having a blast. I'm like, pocket money, this is fun. I'm helping the guys. Well, it wasn't long after that Bud, my regional manager, calls and wanted to have lunch. And usually it wasn't a great thing when Bud wanted to have lunch. But sure, I'll have lunch. And so we're going. I'm sure he's going to congratulate me on being such a fine specimen of an agent for him. And our lunch was, Brian, I understand you're selling on-hold messages to our other agents. I'm like, yeah. I said, he said, yeah, I know what it is. He said, but you can't do that. And I said, well, why can't I do that? He said, you can't be selling stuff to our agents that you're making money off of to the other agents. I'm like, well,
Ridiculous.
and so we got in a conversation that ended with him basically giving me an ultimatum that you're going to quit selling to the other agents, or we're going to take half of your block of business, and then we're going to expect you to train the next guy that we're going to bring in to manage that, and you can go back to selling again. And something happened in that moment that it killed my passion, and it made me realize that if that could be done today, when I'm not married and I don't have a mortgage and my kids aren't in school, what's going to happen when I'm 40 and I don't have the ability really to make the decision? So I told him, I said, I tell you what, you don't have to take half of my block of business. And he was kind of satisfied that, good, you can have it all. And I resigned. Sounds really bold, except I forgot that I was not making enough money to make the payments on all of my other stuff that I had borrowed money for. And as a result of that, I literally resigned and walked away, and then forgot
And
that
you're top 2% in
Yeah,
the country.
right. And
Wow.
then I forgot that I had borrowed the money for my big boat. And I had borrowed the money for my Corvette. And I had borrowed the money for my home. And I had borrowed the money for my brand new Jeep. And I was in trouble. I was in big trouble. And so over the next year, I lost everything in that journey, and was on the border of bankruptcy. But Marla and I, and praise God, Marla, in the middle of what I thought was my best years, she was not nearly as impressed as she was when I finally was broke and broken and humbled. And she saw my life change, that now I had to sell everything. I'm in a garage sale at my grandpa's house trying to sell my stereo or any of my personal property, anything, just to be able to make a payment.
Wow.
Bawling in my grandpa's lap, lost everything, embarrassed, stripped me of all my pride. Was the best thing that ever happened. So
During that question, during that process, did you regret that decision
the
to
resigning,
resign? Yeah.
oh, I don't regret the decision. I regret the pain
Yeah. Yeah.
that I went. Um, I really went through the forge,
Yeah.
but it was the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah.
One of those worst thing you thought ever happened turns into the best thing that ever happened. Stripped me of my pride, and actually put me in a position where, right at that time, I asked Marla to marry me. And so here I was, we'd been dating while she was going through law school and stuff for 4 years. And I was being a big showboat and thought she would be real impressed. But then when I was broken, I think she was finally at a point where she was concerned about that other guy and how I spent money and how loose I was with the money. And at that point, though, we got married. We got married. She said yes, praise God. And we went on our honeymoon. We just decided what we were going to do and what she was going to do. She was going to go supplement and make real money, and then I was going to try and build this on hold message business. I needed a space for my business that had an address. A friend in our life group at church who had a copier shop. And so they allowed me to clean out actually a mop closet
Really?
and hang a phone on the wall and put a bar stool in there with a cocktail table so that was my office. Wow. And then I made that my address, suite number 2. And we put suite 2 on the closet.
Wow.
And so no one ever came to my office. I wouldn't get found out. I had a legitimate address, and we were off to the races. Meantime, Marla was in this incredible, cool office in Nichols Hills Plaza and had boardroom and all this stuff that I'd go visit her and covet her office space. But and then she asked me if I would be disappointed or excited if she were to come and join me in our business. And was the answer to a prayer. That my dream was that we would be growing a business together. But I knew how smart and sharp and strong she was, that it had to be her idea, that it couldn't be me asking her to come help me with my business. It had to be her coming to that decision and us starting to grow together. And the couple that was going to let her take over, or they were going to transition the business over to her, asked us if we would continue to office in there because they just loved the energy that we brought to their office and to their business. And so they gave us office space in this amazing space for free.
Wow.
For the first 2 years of our business. And it was such a blessing. Working together, it was really when our business took off, that we would go cold calling together. I'd drive, she'd get out, she'd go in. We'd drive to the next, I'd get out, I'd go in.
Wow.
We'd do that all day. We had $150,000 of dead dog consumer debt that I had created on credit cards that I had to pay off. And so we were on this journey to start a business when we were married in a new house.
Wow.
And so everything we did went towards that. Any decision we made was, do we absolutely have to have that? And for 2 years, but we paid that off
Wow.
in about 2 years. And then we moved into Oklahoma City instead of driving an hour from the farm which is actually just a mile south of the Cedar Gate
Okay. Wow.
Leadership Center. And so uh, when that happened, we just became a team working together, loved it. Um, and we just never stopped.
What was it that motivated you to want to join and to build this business together?
Initially, I had no interest. When Brian suggested this idea of this kind of marketing and using phone systems, I said, "We're going to make money doing what?" And I said, "Okay, that sounds like a great idea for you to do now that you've left this insurance company. Go do that." I had this other opportunity to join this other firm and grow an estate planning and insurance. And essentially, what happened is the Lord intervened through the Holy Spirit.
Hmm.
And so I was stepping into a really sweet deal to take over a gentleman's life work of insurance and to keep his insurance on the books. I could write all the new business and grow a brand new business out of that. And the deeper I got into that, the the deeper the stirring in my spirit that I just kept hearing, this was not the Lord's plan
Hmm.
for me and my life and our lives.
Mm.
And so I go to Brian and I said, "Honey, I feel like I've always known what I was going to do with my life, but I'm at a crossroads right now where I don't know. I know that I'm not to continue taking over this business, that I need to step back. And the Lord is calling me to work with you. And
Hmm.
do you think we could work together?" And that's when he started crying and saying that that was his heart's desire, but he knew that that had to be the inner working of the Lord within me.
Wow.
And so we grabbed hands, jumped. It was great. It really, right out of the get go of our getting married, it made us truly trust in the giftings of one another. And it was so great because if I was having a hard day out in the marketplace, he was usually at a high and vice versa.
Hmm.
And so we just evened out. And it was so much fun to go out, get an idea, and take it to the marketplace
Hmm.
and build it in the marketplace.
Hmm.
And we
So,
just love it.
so
If
how did the business evolve? Like, as y'all began, you said you're at 2 years working together. What kind of changed? What was the next jumping off point?
if Marla had pursued her law practice and her financial planning, and there's no doubt in my mind that she would have been at the top of the game in the industry. And then I'm extremely competitive, and I would have been going and building our Works24 company and building it with everything I had. And we would have seldom ever crossed paths. And we are far better together. The transition of that was, for me, was it went from now I was out selling to all of these insurance agents all over the state and around the area. Every county had an agent in it for our company. And so I started calling on all of our agents and the other insurance companies that were in those smaller towns. And what else is in that small town? Well, every small town had car dealers and banks. And then we just started figuring out which one was the easiest, which one was the had the most need for what we were selling, which one paid the best, which one had multiple locations versus single locations, which one were we going to really go in more with. And then we met um, the gentleman, Ryan Humphrey, who was over the Oklahoma Bankers Association political agenda in D.C., but also was the guy that headed up the conventions and the marketing. And so met him, and he talked to us about coming to a convention, Oklahoma Bankers Convention. I'm like, oh, that'd be great. Meet a lot of people there. And we already had banks that loved us and used us around the state. Went to that event, and it took us on a new journey of networking and meeting, instead of just business after hours and meeting every type of business, to now we were meeting with the banks, and they had influence with other banks, and we could name drop and learned that, wow, these guys really trust each other. They need what we have. They love what we have. It's serving a great purpose. So we became endorsed. And I'm like, endorsed? Well, that sounds great. Now we're an endorsed vendor for the Oklahoma Bankers Association. And then Ryan helped take us to the Arkansas Bankers Association and introduced us to the guy that did the same thing there. And we became endorsed by Arkansas. And then that took us to Iowa. And then to Texas, and then to Illinois, and so then we became endorsed by most of the bank associations
And at that time, like, how big had your team become?
Well, at that time we were still about 4 people, 3 or 4. We had a receptionist that handled the phone calls and paperwork, and then we had a studio engineer and voice talent that we were, and then Ryan joined us full time, and he became what we called master mixer daddy, and he was making sure that the scripts got written,
That's
and
more funny once you know, Ryan.
yeah. And then he was in the studio, running the studio, making tapes, and he was shipping tapes out, and
Wow.
we were out selling it, and he was delivering it. And then we had a receptionist, and then we had a bookkeeper, and and then we had our own CSR that was following up and servicing these clients, and we just kept growing as we had to.
At what point did it become not tapes? Because well, tell us a little bit why it's called Works24 and what exactly it does. I think that'd be good context for anyone. And at what time did you switch from it just being the on-hold messaging?
We moved from the tapes was just the most obvious, easy starter point. Then
That was the early 90s, by the
yeah,
way. Yeah.
right, 90, I think, and that's when I'd gotten my first laptop. Was it right at in 92 or 93? And we had a vision for a automated system that you could manage and change from the internet, and you could pick your own music, you could pick your own voice, and a lot of what we were dreaming, um, that was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, didn't actually come to full fruition until in the last few years with, and now with AI and with um, uh, automated studios. But in 2000, we started developing the program to automate and scale our client base. We went to a friend of ours down the hall that was a part of a programming team out of Dallas, and they quoted us that it was going to be like $220,000 to design this program. And I was just like, oh my gosh, well, I'm not trying to sell the company. I was wanting an automatic program. Well, with that, I ended up hiring another company that they promised they could do it for $20,000. Well, after we paid the 20,000 and then 25 and then 30 and then realized we had nothing and then they disappeared, we're like, well, that didn't work out so good. So then we went to another company that was a $80,000 venture, and that didn't work out so good. And then we did it a third time, and then by the time we messed up 4 times, we had spent more than the 220 that we would have.
It's a lesson
So
right there.
I called my buddy back, and he said, "I'm glad you called." He said, "I was let go on Friday." I'm like, "Oh, well, are you available?" And so we hired him for $60,000 a year instead of 220,000, and he built in 90 days our first version of that with duct tape and super glue and makeshift pieces. But it was the beginning of the Works24 network, and to get to where it is today, with the team we have is amazing. The retention, the renewal, the longevity, and then to just see our business as our ministry to our people. And most of our employees have been with us for 10, 20, that we're getting ready to do our Christmas party. And I think we're doing 3 new 20-year awards and 2 10-year awards that people just have been such a huge part of developing it, and that it's our other family. And it's
So how do you build a culture that's intentional, that people stay, that people want to be at, and at the same time, you've experienced some tremendous growth?
In Hebrew, there's 2 words for family. One is the traditional family that we all expect. The other word for family means the family that you work with.
Mm.
And from the very beginning, everyone we hire, it feels like we're adding them to our family. It's from the heart. And Brian, that's truly who he is and how he leads our family, the true family, but then our work family as well. And I think that's what makes the difference, and that's what builds people, builds relationships, and builds longevity and vision and growth.
something else that fosters, forges, and I don't think it's easy. It's intentional. It's not something that I tell people. I say they want to say, "Well, I want to create. I want to create a culture," and I say, "Well, here's the good news: or the bad news. You already are. You are creating a culture.
Mhm.
Is it the one you want?
Mm.
Is it by design or is it by default? But you are creating a culture." And so to step into that and then define your culture based off of what you're creating, not what you're just allowing. Um, and so it takes effort, it takes time, it takes um, intentionality. It also takes life experiences of going through people's experiences with them, for them to know that they matter, for them to know that you care, for them to, it's love. It's just like a family, that it's not about me. Uh, we are humble servant leaders. I am here first to serve you. I, God did not give me you to build this business. He gave and entrusted me this business to build our people.
Mm.
And that creates a great culture. And when they know that you're here for them
Mm.
as much or more than you are for yourself. And it's about relationships, that if we have good relationships that are built on love and care and a servant's heart towards each other, we're going to have a great culture.
Mm. That's powerful. So if someone were to say to you, I want what you have, I want to start a business, what would you tell them?
Usually, when people tell me, I want what you have, um, they're looking at lifestyle, they're looking at uh, assets, they're looking at home, they're looking at stuff. But I would tell them, you don't need what I You don't want what I have. You don't need what I have. You need to know what I know, and you need to know who I know. So
If you had to articulate that the greatest wisdom that has led you to where you are in life, to that victory, to that voice, what would you say that knowledge is that others could benefit from?
the greatest commandment, to love God and love others. That I truly believe that God did not give our business to us for us, but he has entrusted our business to us for him and for others.
Mhm.
And as long as we operate with our hands open instead of clenched closed, with generosity
Mm.
and not greed, in all of those different ways, that it is just true that you can't outgive. That we want to be go givers, not go getters.
You're a wealth of wisdom, and these conversations we had many times around your dinner table. I'm so thankful that others get to hear that wisdom. I want to ask you a question about family. Um, I look to both of you with great admiration and respect because I feel like it's very common. I will see a business owner who appears to be winning in their professional life, but it's sometimes to the detriment of other aspects of their life that they're also stewarding. How, in growing that business, did you prioritize and balance your family?
Starting it off, we didn't have children, and what I what I would say initially and always to live by faith and not by sight. And I think that is another key virtue that we had that really forged us ahead. But then when we started having children and I had my firstborn in my arms, nothing felt more unnatural to me than to pass this most precious life to someone I didn't know to care for them during the day so that I could go to work. I was like, no, my most precious work is right here in my arms. And so at that time in our business, we had owned it for about 4 years and when we had our firstborn. And so I was like, honey, okay, you got this. Up until that time, we had a lot of fun growing it together, hand in hand, and it was an adventure. Um, but we both knew that that was the way that the Lord was calling us to.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, there was nothing more meaningful, nothing more beautiful that I could do with my life than to invest it into my children. But Brian was so honoring and respectful of this season in our lives that he would bring home um, ideas and visions and decisions that he needed to make. And so I always felt like a co laborer in that,
Mhm.
even though I wasn't at the office daily. Because we just, at least for us and our particular dynamics, we just really enjoy that marketing component of bringing ideas
The
to the
strategy.
marketplace and strategy.
I call Kristen,
Yeah.
my wife, the chief counsel. Chief counsel.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like, okay, do you see this fork in the road coming up? And so I was always so grateful that Brian was all the time, even now, just having me right by his side and us looking at everything together. Um, but again, my greatest work of anything that I could do with my life is sowing into our children. And but now I've had 5, and my youngest is a senior, and she doesn't need mama home so much, and so I'm got my boots on and back in the saddle and out in the marketplace and enjoying that. Um, but still with the sights that the most highest work that I can do is at home.
How was it on the other side of that?
Mhm.
Well, when Marla um, decided it was time for her to go home and be full-time uh, mom and to grow the family, I was so excited and tried to fake it of how fearful I was that uh, I had just lost my number one salesperson, and half of our revenue was going home to take care of our newborn. Very excited. But my experience has also been that a lot of times businesses succeed not because of pressing through your inspiration, but pressing through your desperation and staying the course. Just keep going. And you end up in places that you never would have found yourself. But and it forces you at times. Tell people all the time that the fastest education you'll get is starting your own business because you'll learn stuff you never wanted to learn, and it takes you places that you never thought it would take you. But there's never been anything more challenging and enjoyable and satisfying to
Mm.
us. As a family, the one thing that I grew up on the farm, and um, most of my best education was with my dad and my mom. And whatever we were doing, whether it was weeding the garden, or whether it was feeding the calves, or whether it was running equipment, or whether it was servicing equipment, or whatever uh, it was practical experience that I learned. I knew my parents loved me. I knew they cared for me. Sitting on the tailgate of the pickup, watching sunsets, taking time for me. So I grew up admiring that, experiencing that, um, uh, so much appreciation for that investment of their time. Uh, I've often thought that, and have said that, I believe that most of our important stuff is caught more than it's taught.
Mm.
And that requires our presence. And so, us being able to give our children, our family, our presence is one of the most valuable things we can do. I also, we decided to homeschool all five of our children. And when Marla approached me with that idea, I grew up in a small town. Um, and my claim to fame is I graduated top 10 graduating seniors, but all seven of us actually did. So, seven in my graduating class was not that big of a stretch of a homeschool of five for me. I like the idea. I like freedom. I like flexibility. I love entrepreneurial thinking. I think it's the most uh, fun thing I could do. But uh, mine to me was taking them with us, that we would take them with us to um, more mature events than most people would take their kids to. But we wanted them to catch it. We wanted them to meet the same people we were meeting. We wanted them to get to know our village. The most valuable thing we could share with our kids is the people that we know, and to take them with us and introduce them. I so admire the maturity of your kids, and how they, even at such a young age, are they look you in the eye and they shake hands and they're polite and they show honor to you and don't interrupt. Well, I would take our kids with me on appointments starting at age 4.
Wow.
And we would go and they would learn how to sit in the lobby and be quiet and color in their books and talk to the receptionist or whoever was out there until I got through with my meeting. And then I'd come back out and we would load up all the stuff that the business had given my child, and they were now a celebrity, and the business owner I was working with would just go, "That's amazing." They became my uh, like my mascot. I mean, and people loved it, and they're just like, "Wow, that's amazing." And it was a very valuable thing for our relationship with our kids. And as a result of that, I tell people that we've actually raised 5 Rhodes Scholars,
Hmm.
spelled ROAD. Uh, that I would tell them, I say, get in, let's go. We're going to learn something. Now we'd work through their school, but then we'd listen to Narnia, and then we'd listen to John Maxwell,
Hmm.
and then we'd talk about it, and then we'd go to a national monument of some type and fit in, and we'd try and make sure that we'd find a hotel that had a water park at it, or a swimming pool, or we'd do things that made it fun, but at the same time they now knew what it was that I did,
Wow.
and we'd get to build relationship that way. Um, as a result of that, uh, I'm not ready to write a book on it, but I can say that all 5 of our children are seeking the Lord, are mature beyond their years,
I can attest to that.
are successful in their careers, are um, others minded. They are best friends with each other and honoring and respectful and friends with us. Uh, and we're doing life together, and it's the way we dreamed of it being, but it was intentional, and it was a journey, and is a journey still. Um, but I couldn't recommend it any higher to anyone. That there's no one I'd rather be spending time with than my family,
Hmm.
and then second to that would be our work family, in that same way.
Well, hearing you talk about that and talking about your children is very much the way I was raised. And that's one, there's so much alignment in values and the values that we share and how we treat business, how we look at our business as a ministry. Um, I want to ask you this, Oklahoma for us is we call it our Western expansion. We're going west. More businesses, more partners this year in Oklahoma than any other state, and we're just starting.
Mm.
And really, you two are the reason for that opportunity for us. Um, so I want to ask you guys, like, because I know you've served as a reference for us many, many times. What do you tell people about Harbinger? And you're here in Atlanta. What do you tell them about who we are when you have the opportunity to speak to them?
Harbinger is family. I have never met another company. This makes me cry too. Um, that is a business to business that comes in and they are all in it for the relationship and truly to grow you as a company. And the way I see it in God's economy, it is always a win win win. That there's the win for the customer, there's a win for the company that is selling the service, um, and there's the win of the relationship and how it all works together. And so that's how we are growing some other companies, and the companies that we have is we want it to always be a win-win-win. And so when we met you, David, and Harbinger Marketing, and I can tell you everyone on your team has that ideal. Everyone on your team has that virtue, and we feel it, and we love you guys
Mm.
so much.
I guess I would say that it is a trust of intent much like our businesses, our goal has, we enjoy the benefits of the success side of our business, the financial benefits, the freedoms, God's blessed us with some great businesses, with great people that we continue to grow and develop. But there is no success without successors. And I've toyed with that for a long time, that, success is adding value to me. Significance is adding value to others. I've heard that. I've read that. I mean, a lot of my heroes and mentors, I've heard that version, but I've kind of modified it, and I don't know if I'm just trying to make this my own, but as I'm writing my own book, I've started thinking through that actually for me, it's not success or significance, but it is success plus succession, success plus successful, success plus successful succession. The transfer. Here's the transformation part in success, but there is the succession, the transfer to others that has to take place before it's significant in transcendency, to be transcendent, for it to be eternal, for it to be really impacting, not just for here on earth or today, but forever. And so as I've seen how you do business, and I value the fact that you're not just building your business for you to make more money, but you're using your business to build your people, to build your impact, to build your clients who have a like-minded value for good and for God, and that you're committed to staying that course. So I have confidence in you and your team that you're doing this not to just make more money, but to truly make a difference in the lives of people and in the lives of your clients that you serve.
Couldn't say it better. 100%. That's what we are. We're a harbinger, not only of the message of our partners, but a harbinger for Christ.
Yep.
And what you said, which I couldn't agree with more, the greatest commandment, just love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. And I think there's no better way to do that than through business. The place where we spend a significant portion of our lives. What'd you say in the car? It's a undercover.
Wait.
Now it's not undercover anymore.
Disguised as.
You are an undercover pastor,
That's right.
disguised as a business owner. And not just to your staff and your employees, but also to all of your clients.
That's a good challenge for everyone, because whatever we build here in these businesses on earth, it's all going to come to an end. But we have the opportunity to build something eternal. And that's why I'm so thankful for you both. The example that you set, the friendship we share, and thank you also for sharing your story today. It's an amazing story, and I'm just so grateful for y'all's time today and for taking the time to be on the podcast. And next time, I want to do an episode of the podcast at the Cedar Gate, and we want to hear that story too.
Let's do it.